In this episode, David Stearns and I discussed the purpose of the Nelson Nash Institute, NNI.
You know, I want to talk about NNI. Background, how I got started, how's it going, some of the challenges, you know, just I want to hear about NNI. What is the purpose of NNI, David? That's it.
Well, you know, the NNI, the Nelson Nash Institute, used to be the Infinite Banking Institute. And it was that we call it the IBI for about the first year. And you think about that word, the Infinite Banking Institute. That sounds like something that Regions Bank would go to on an annual basis to get training or whatever. So I think it really sent the wrong message. And so one of our practitioners at that time said, you know, have you thought about changing the name to make it more descriptive? And what is the purpose of what you're doing with the IBI? And we said, well, the purpose is to maintain and to accelerate Nelson's legacy. It's like, gee, Nelson's legacy, Nelson Nash's legacy. So why isn't it called the Nelson Nash Institute or the IBI? It's like, duh. I should have had a V8, man. So that was the instantaneous change right there. NNI. So the purpose of it is to keep the vision of Nelson front and center above the noise that you see out there in social media and also in the financial services industry. Because anybody who's got an iPhone or an Android or a computer can type in infinite banking concepts and they can get all kinds of different variations of what it is, how it's used, what the product set is, who founded it, right?
Right.
I mean,
a lot of different founders,
and where to go to get training.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not an insurance agent. Okay, I don't hold a license. I did go through the insurance training course just so I knew the terminology. I went through the 40-hour course in the state of Alabama just so I knew what a whole life policy looked like next to a universal life policy and a term policy. But I'm not in the business, okay? And I decided early on, like 2004, when I first started working with Nelson, and he kind of pushed me in this direction that I was not going to become an insurance agent, and I was not going to get into sales because he wanted me to focus on the business end of it. Okay, you know, expanding his seminars, providing more products and more education for the public. Okay. And so when we formed the NNI, I still had that role, okay, to kind of put it together. And the primary reason that we did this institute was as a resource for the public, okay, so they could cut through the noise I talked about on social media. And instead of going to an insurance agency or an insurance company or a financial planning organization and say, do you know what this IVC is? Can you do it for me? They could maybe Google Nelson Nash or whatever, and they'd find us. And we could say, okay, we're a resource to you, the general public. Okay, we're providing you videos, we're providing you books, we're providing you articles. And the good thing, the important thing about infinite banking is that if you're a practitioner in the small P sense, a client, then what you're doing is more important than what your financial advisor is doing for you. You're not watching your mutual fund portfolio on a daily basis. You're managing your policies, right? And so we wanted to provide the public a resource so they can manage their policies correctly. Well, the big discriminator was there. Who is going to design their policies for them? So NNI needed to vet and train insurance agents as that part of that resource for the public, right? And that's why you're here, James, because you were one of our first guys. I think, you know, we have practitioner reference numbers, and your number 001.
001.
001.
I'm very proud of that. I
And
just want you to know.
everybody else is alphabetical, by the way, but no. The second piece of the NNI, besides providing that platform for the public to go to where they're not being sold something, except for maybe books. Right. Okay, they're not being signed up, and you'll get a cold call, to sell you a financial product. Was to give them a resource. Say this is not from, somebody trying to sell you something. This is strictly educational. The second piece was, okay, now here is a resource for you to look for. And this is a IBC practitioner database or a finder. Okay. And so the NNI provides trained, vetted financial professionals that know how to do this. Some of them are better than others, obviously. But at least we can vouch for those individuals. And that's what we're doing.
And so when you say training, they get training that they don't really get anywhere else when it comes to Austrian economics.
Right.
And then they get training on the infinite banking concept as far as structure of policies and really what the message of becoming your own banker is, controlling the banking function in your life.
Right.
So they get the training on Austrian economics, right? And they literally don't get that anywhere else.
Right.
And what kind of training when it comes to IBC or policies? Is it really the companies to use, the structure of the policy, or what kind of training would a financial professional, if they had interest in learning about the infinite banking concept, right? Not through their insurance company or their IMO or FMO. What could they expect? What kind of training could they expect from NNI?
Well, during the course segment, the academics that they go through, we have a module called the Economics of Life Insurance. Okay, and we use a whole life illustrations for 2 case studies, and they're generic because obviously there's so many nuances in policy design, and it varies between company and company. Most people know that. So we have a very low intensity case design for a family and then for a business, just to show you how to design a policy. And of course, we look at the premium setup, what's a PUA, how to manage policy loans, things like that. But we intentionally did not name any companies. Okay. Number one, and number two is we didn't go into any advanced level stuff that might be more identifiable by company A versus company B. Okay, so but it gives them a good foundational baseline for where to start. Now, if an agent goes through the course and IBC is totally new to them, then we when we interview them before we let them come in the course, we determine if they need a mentor or not. Okay, so they're told that before they actually enroll in the course and before we accept any tuition from them. And then when they complete the final examination, then they work with a mentor. And that's the mentor is the individual who really gets into policy design with them and the nuances and what works best for client A versus client B, even what company might be a better choice. Right?
So the advanced training and experience would be working with a mentor.
Right.
Before that, it's lower level, lower intensity.
Right.
But I think it's still very important and valid because just because you have a life insurance license, the insurance companies don't train agents how to put more additional money into the PUA or weight the policy premium to the PUA compared to the base. They don't get into that. They pretty much have their set products, and we're solving the need for death benefit. So even that low intensity that you said is very important,
right?
Because they learn what Nelson discovered, right? About life insurance and all the characteristics of life insurance. So they get that. At NNI, that really doesn't exist anywhere else that I know of.
It doesn't.
Right. And then the advanced training would be with a mentor, some case design, case by case and company. I like that. I think that's
right.
That's missing. That's not, you can't get that anywhere else.
Well, we also don't forget, we have our annual event that we do for the practitioners. We do have producers go over case studies also, more detailed case studies. That are some of them very complicated, and that's a resource that's provided to all practitioners in the form of restricted videos there.
It can get technical from time to time.
Yeah, very very technical.
But it doesn't really have to be. If they know how to properly design a policy, following in Nelson's path, they're ahead of the curve when it comes to, the financial gurus that are out there. I believe I've said, and I always say that, you walk into a room full of people and you say infinite banking concept, you're really the expert in the room because no one else has heard of it. Unless there's a life insurance agent there or a licensed agent there. And then, of course, they're automatically the expert because they have a license.
Right.
Which, I think the life insurance license is just a little bit harder to get than a driver's license. I mean, I'm just saying. So there's a lot of value on the training, and then the annual events. Perfect. I love it. What kind of value do you see the value? So this has been put into place. It's been functioning successfully for several years.
We started the program in 2013, February 13. And we typically interview 1 or 2 people a week who want to apply the program. I think we accept about 90 to 95% of the people in the program. Why would we accept somebody? You want me to give you an example?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we want to know.
It's like, what's your experience level? Oh, my experience level is I've been in the business for 16 years, quote unquote, and I know everything there is about whole life insurance. And tell us what you know about whole life insurance.
Well, I don't own any.
And it's like, that doesn't sound right. Well, how much do you own?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I got $1 million policy, term policy, which your premium $200 a month. It's like, okay. So it's not that they don't own any. It's not the turnoff. It's that they think they're professed as experts.
They've got their rival syndrome.
Yeah. And if they're so good at it and they know it's such a great thing, well, then it's like, well, why aren't you doing it? Well, that's disingenuous. Okay. So after the interview, we take them off the webinar, and then Robert Murphy, Carlos Lower, Nelson Nash, and I discuss the interview, and we vote. Okay. And say, nope, let's give them a homework assignment, or no, flat out no. And so, like a homework assignment, it's like, okay, I'll contact him. Says, okay, read Becoming Your Own Banker, and read How Privatized Banking Really Works. And when you're done with it, call me up. I'll schedule a second interview, and we'll do a book review. And most of them never follow up.
What?
They don't follow up. If they do follow up, and we do the book review, and it's like they've made the effort, they're getting it, they're in. That's how we do it.
Did they read Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, before they did the interview?
Some of them have not. Some of them have not. Okay. They've watched some YouTube videos though.
I just want to know if I received a unanimous vote or not. He's on the spot.
I don't think we no. I got to tell you that you were not interviewed.
Oh, was it?
We didn't start the interview process until 2 years ago.
Oh, well, okay. Fair enough.
No, you were grandfathered in because you were a member of the think tank organization. Remember that?
Absolutely.
So you were an early adopter of the concept, and so you're one of the first that were grandfathered in.
I'm okay with that. I would just I will interpret that as I would have received a unanimous. Right. So,
you've taught me a lot about IBC from your perspective as a producer.
Yeah.
You're one of my resources. You know that.
I appreciate you saying that. So, I know you type in infinite banking on Google or YouTube, and like you said earlier, and I almost cringe when I do it because I'm afraid that what I might see, what'll come up.
Right.
Do you see the Nelson Nash Institute making a difference, a separation of, this is the origin of the infinite banking concept, and this is how you this is how you should do it. This is what it should look like. These are vetted professionals that understand the concept, that practice it themselves. Do you see a separation?
I'm seeing that now. I think there's more than it was before. Before it was just a free for all. Now there's old stuff that's still floating around out there, but the newer stuff has been renamed as something else. And my family privatizedbankingconcept.com or whatever you want to call it. And so we're seeing that they're moving, they're causing separation, okay, because they don't want to get commingled and confused to protect themselves. But so I think it's getting a lot better, and we're receiving a lot of calls and emails from individuals who are saying, okay, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that. Is that the same thing as what you guys do? And the comeback is they think they're the same thing, and without going into it in gory detail, I can't guarantee that. And they say, okay, I want to find somebody who I know is doing it correctly, and that's where we find them. Or an agent will sit down with a client, and the client says, I've read this book. This is great. Have you read this book yet?
I have.
And their agent go, oh no, well here, read it. And the first thing they do is they go to the back here, they look at my phone number or email address, and they call me and say, I got a client who wants to do this. What do I do? And I say, well, schedule an interview, go through the course. I go, no. I need to get a policy in force in the next 20 or 30 days.
I need a presentation.
Yeah, I need It's like, sorry.
So you should tell them, have your client go to the practitioner finder at infinitebanking.org and do themselves a favor, right?
No, there's no magic with IBC. You know that, right? Okay. There's I don't know if you want to talk about money flow and cash flow.
We can talk about anything you
like
want.
that. But there's a lot of misconception out there. Just because money flows, it doesn't mean it grows.
You mean if I move money from here and then move it over there, I'm not magically going to make it increase? It's not going to grow?
It's not going to magically grow.
Oh my gosh.
But, if you look at a conventional bank, it's different than a private bank. Because a private bank is not fiat money, right?
Right.
Okay. So money does grow from a conventional bank, a commercial retail bank, because it comes out of thin air. So I guess it's growing. But no, IBC is not magic. IBC is hardcore biblical financial sense. Okay, that's why it's got to be understood so you don't turn it upside down.
I firmly believe that if people will just spend the time reading Nelson's book several times, one reading won't do, they'll understand exactly the message that Nelson's conveying, right? Who's controlling the banking function?
Mm-hmm.
We've abdicated our responsibility in general as individuals, and somebody else is fulfilling that need because banking exists and banking is, and they're profiting from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the characteristics of a life insurance policy, properly designed, has more characteristics of a banking entity than it does even life insurance. It's really simple. We complicate it. The agent, the advisor, the professional, they can complicate the fire out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that complicated. It is really, really simple. There's just some minor nuances on maybe a policy design, but it is so not complicated. The toughest thing I find is, being able to get past that word life insurance.
Right.
It has a whole stigma to it, preconceived ideas. And, I said, you've heard, Nelson says that most people's understanding of life insurance is based on someone else's misconception
mm-hmm.
or misunderstanding. So, you set some of those preconceived ideas aside, read Nelson's book a couple of times, let it sink in, and then find an agent, connect with an agent who thoroughly understands the concept.
What, before we had the IBC practitioners, when I received phone calls from the general public who had read the book and they were really excited about it, they wanted to find an agent. And I'd say, okay, I'll give you some references before we had them posted on the website. And I felt confident who I was giving them to. And then we started the program, and we started getting these calls. And I said, okay, this is how I handle it now. I said, you got to read BYOB just like you suggested, maybe twice. And then you write down what you think are the most important parts of it to you as an individual. And then if you have any burning questions that you don't understand, jot those down. And then when you sit down with one of these agents, first of all, you ask them how many times they've read the book. Then you ask them how much permanent whole life they own. And if they're still on the phone or in the conversation with you after those two questions, then you start asking them the questions directly out of the book and see what type of answers you get. And that you'll know if that's the right individual for you or not based upon that.
You need to refer more to me because no one's ever called me and done that.
So,
and I get interviewed.
That's what I tell them.
I'm like, these are really good questions. Would you read the book and then call me?
I mean, most insurance agents will pick up the book, and the first thing they do is they flip to page 58 and or 54 is the first illustration of equipment financing. And they start looking at the numbers, and then they sit down in front of their computer and they log into their carrier portal, and they try to replicate the policy design. And they don't read the book. They don't even read the text on equipment financing.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, hey guys, you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Try to put it on Excel spreadsheet. So what's your feedback from the general public? Positive, negative. Do you get feedback after they've spoken with a practitioner very often? I mean, do you hear back from them?
I don't hear back as much as I should, and we probably need to create some sort of follow-up system. But for the most part, it's positive. Of course, I get calls like I'm looking for an agent. I live in Oklahoma. It's like, okay, there's a practitioner finder there. Go call. Well, I called the first guy, never called me back. I called the second guy, and I got a voicemail, and I'm still waiting for a call back. I called the third guy, and his phone was out of service. I mean, so now I'm looking for somebody who doesn't live in that state who can help me out. So those are the negative sides. The positive sides are, thank you very much. This is going to be great. And believe it or not, a lot of these clients that really believe this, and they really practice it, and they really get into it, eventually they want to become practitioners themselves.
Right.
That's just a whole new subset there. So that's exciting.
I talked to a gentleman the other day that he met Nelson about 13 or 14 years ago, and he just was excited as he could be, sharing with me how many policies they own and how they do it and how it's changed their family, for their third generation.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty powerful. And that was before you had the practitioner program.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing it a long time. So I hear very positive. I get very positive feedback when I get it.
I got a call from this one kid in Utah. And I say kid, he's like 28 years old. And he goes, I need help. I need somebody to tell me if I should lapse my policy or not. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'll probably get the numbers wrong. But he said, look, I have one policy, and I bought it like 8 years ago. And I have a $500,000 loan on the policy. And all I can do every year is pay the loan interest. I get my premium renewal. Okay, and I have like a $40,000 interest bill, and so I pay the loan interest, okay, and barely scrape enough money together to pay the premium, and then as soon as it renews, I borrow the money out that I paid for the premium and put it back where I got it from, so I can live.
Yeah,
and I'm just chasing my tail, trying to pay this interest. And I said, well, how much principal have you paid on the loan? He goes, I never paid any. I said, well, why not? Because it's my bank, I own it, I don't have to if I don't want to.
Right.
And I said, well, who taught you how to do this?
Right.
And it was some guy off the street.
Yeah.
And then I gave him options. Again, of course I told him, I said, I can't give you financial advice because I don't want to get any legal problems here. But do not lapse that policy. Okay. Reduce the PUA completely. Use the dividends to pay the interest of the loan. You get it. There's many ways you can do this. He goes, I didn't know that. Nobody told me anything. And so the first thing I do is I refer them to one of our guys to work with them and to keep this thing afloat until he can get back on his feet. So that when I talked about getting under, getting upside down, that's where I was coming from.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very large missing part that you don't see this on YouTube. You don't see it on, social media. Is number one, if the policy was not designed correctly where he's at and what he was trying to do, that could be a problem, no question. Especially if a guy walking off the street designed it for him, taught him how to do it exactly wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have to be honest, right? Your capital has a cost. It requires discipline and respect. Capital does. And so, if you just honor that, it gives you a very simple method, format, process. It's unbelievably simple. But your capital has a cost. But that young man was not repaying loans, so he's stealing peas, as Nelson. And then he didn't have a coach. Nelson talks about the importance of a coach, right? So, I see that there is missing is management of loans, right? If you don't have a clear path.
Do you do that in your office?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I mean, we don't do it for our clients. We teach them. It's very important. You have an asset there. You've got to know how to manage the asset. Just paying premium and taking loans forever, theoretically, could it work? Yeah, if nothing ever goes wrong, there's never a problem until there's a problem.
Right.
But you can't go anywhere and borrow money without a loan repayment. Anywhere.
Right.
And if you'll honor the banker's money at 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and you won't honor your own,
right.
There's some philosophical changes there that need to happen, some adjustments.
You're absolutely correct, man.
Typically, I'm a firm believer. I'm convinced that if you understand what's going on, you'll know what to do. Well, that applies to a policy too. If you understand the policy, the asset, you know what's going on, you'll know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a fabulous solution. I mean, I don't give a damn, David. You don't either. I know what the interest rates are. Do you care what the market did the last 3 days?
No.
Do you care what your credit score is?
I don't even know what it is.
Because you don't care.
I don't care. I don't even know what it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the only thing I track is my policy loan portfolio. So if I get too nervous, it's like, but there's another side of that too. Windfall. Got a place to put that windfall, right?
I find that changes. Doesn't that change? The balance of cash value, net cash value, and outstanding loan. Doesn't that change? Doesn't your comfort level change? Can you have too much in outstanding loans for you to be comfortable, right? And then maybe you've got no outstanding loan and a ton of premium or a ton of cash value in there, and it's like it didn't matter anyway. I could have repaid the loan, or I could have put more PUA.
Just
it's like a sleep number that changes. Is what I have found.
Cash flow, man, both sides of the equation.
That's right.
Nelson, as of today, is 87 years old. Okay, he thinks he's going to live forever, even though he's planning on like he's going to die today, and with a zero balance in his estate, right? But anyway, Nelson's persona, I think, is what really got infinite banking where it is. His you could tell his genuine passion for what he did and how he did it and why he did it. Both the insurance side of him, the Forester side of him, and the Austrian side of him. Okay, so that persona, you have some of it, some of that passion, and I have a little bit of it. Okay, because whatever. But really, we think it's incredibly important to keep that whole package moving forward for the next generation. Okay, so instead of selecting individuals to do that, we're trying to create this entity that under the guidance of passionate direction will keep it going for your children, your grandchildren, and the next generation of insurance agents also. Because without a mutual insurance company or mutual holding company and trained life insurance agents, then how can you implement IBC without those resources? How do you do it? You can bury money in the backyard and have a sinking fund. But so that's what the NII is all about. We're trying to get it up and going and get the momentum create that critical 10% tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell talks about, to keep it going and get the crest of the wave going. Okay. Now I talked about earlier about a lot of clients who are really, really bought into infinite banking. A lot of the public, eventually, they see the benefit of becoming licensed as insurance agents because they want to learn more about it. And so we don't accept the general public into our practitioner program. We only accept licensed producers in there because I don't want folks to go out and become, lead generators for non-practitioners. So, you know what I mean? So that's why we don't do that. So, but these individuals who say, I really want to know more about it, and I'm learning a lot from James Neathery, don't get me wrong, but I want to have access to some of this software that I can get access to. And oh, by the way, if I am referring my friends and customers, why can't I make a living also doing this? Either straight commission or overrides of some of the production. So that's why a lot of these people are doing it, and they take ownership of the whole process from top to bottom when they do that. Right. As long as they have a coach, as long as they have a mentor, as long as they have proper guidance. Right. But anyway, that's all I know about that.
It's not an A.L. Williams thing, right? Where it's a multi-level marketing thing, get rich quick.
No.
Your practitioners make it look easy, and so everybody can do it.
No, it looks easy until you get a phone call 10 years down the road. You got a policy that's imploded because it was not the right design.
Right.
That's the choke point there.
Somebody's got to be on the other end of that phone when the client calls, right?
I got a question for you. How much indexed universal life do you sell as banking policies?
0.
Why?
Because it's flawed by design. It's good for the company. It's good for the agent, and it's terrible for the policy owner. You remember W.C. Fields? There's 3 entities in that. Right. The insurance company who issued the policy, mm-hmm. the agent who sold the policy,
right,
and the owner who bought the policy. Well, if it's good for 2 of them, you remember W.C. Fields? He said, well, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
Right. Universal life is flawed by design, and you cannot correct it.
Yeah, but it illustrates beautifully, though.
And that's why agents sell it, and that's why people buy it. They're buying numbers on a page. And the agent, look, you asked me, so I'm telling you.
No, I want to hear it.
There's only 2, in my opinion, there's 2 kinds of agents that sell universal life, and only 2. Ones who don't know what universal life does mm-hmm. over time, so they're ignorant. The other one knows what universal life does over time, and they sell it anyway, so they're less than honest.
Okay,
that's my opinion.
I think I agree 100% because obviously one of the contractual restrictions that we have on our practitioners is that if they have a client who wants a banking policy, it's got to be a permanent whole life design.
Right. Dividend paying, participating.
Mutual company.
Right.
Mutual holding.
I don't want to beat the industry up, but the industry deserves every black eye. They've earned every black eye that they received. Universal Life is the latest product design foisted on the unsuspecting American public. Actuarially, it is sound.
Well, it's just a term policy, right, with a cash side fund.
Yeah, some kind of a side fund that earns interest, mm-hmm. right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you can't lose money because it's indexed. It's got a floor of 0, so you can't lose money. Well, people hear that. The agent, the advisor, the salesperson wears that out. You can't lose money. You can't lose money. Well, that cost of insurance goes up contractually every year.
And where's the money come from to pay those premiums?
Yeah. From the lowest interest rate environment of 6,000 years that we're coming out of, or the indexed, right? And then the fees, you talk about fees, you open up one of those contracts, there's so many fees in there that they're esoterically named. What do you mean? What is this fee, that fee, and this fee? Every year you get closer to mortality, graduation, the cost of that death benefit goes up. Let's look at all the lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, you can do your homework. It's public information. Companies have paid millions and millions and millions of dollars settling. The last one I read about, part of the previous settlement, their a company is being sued or was being sued recently, and they referenced the previous lawsuit. Part of the previous lawsuit settlement was, you can't sue us over this again. Right? Seriously.
Yeah. Well.
So,
okay, I'm glad. I just wanted to get that out in public. That's all. Because I hear that a lot from some of these people out there that are not in the know. Another thing that it kind of irks me is we'll get a lot of feedback from Nelson's book that, when's the last time you updated your illustrations?
right.
That's, and my usual answer is 2006, and we stopped chasing the tail because it's not the number that counts; it's the relationship between the numbers on the page that count,
And human action.
and the human action that makes it work.
Right.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed the content, leave us a like or a thumbs up, share us with your friends, give us some feedback, and we'll see you next time.